On the eve of our engagement, I discovered Orion's correspondence with another woman. The girl claimed to be his wife 10 years from now. The densely written letters were filled with their love and sweetness. Until Orion asked her name. The impostor said, "My name is Fable." The day Orion went to find her was the day he was supposed to propose to me. I waited for him in the cold wind all day, but the person who came was his older brother. Serafina. Have you ever thought? If his future wife is someone else, then who will your future husband be? Later, I married his older brother. But he had a high fever for a week. Even in his illness, he still murmured my name, and every day after that was filled with remorse. When I went to the study to get something, I accidentally noticed that Orion's safe wasn't closed. As I was about to close it for him, a letter fell out. The envelope was a cute pastel pink, not like an important company document. It seemed more like a love letter written to him by some young girl. And in the safe, there were countless letters of the same kind. My heart pounding, I reached out almost involuntarily, took out one of them and opened it. "Hello, Orion, 10 years ago. I have good news for you. We're still happily together 10 years from now. Right now, you're rubbing my lower abdomen because I'm on my period. The weather is so nice today. The afternoon sun shines through the glass onto your face, warm and making people feel good. While rubbing, I couldn't help but hug you and kiss you. You guessed it right. I'm your wife now. July 14, 2034. After the date, there was also a sweet smiling face drawn. On the back of the letter paper was Orion's reply. He wrote in a teasing tone. "What kind of new prank is this?" With a feeling of shock and absurdity, I read through the letters one by one. In the future described by the girl, they had a harmonious marriage, a beautiful daughter, and a very happy life. The girl knew Orion very well. She would comfort and encourage him when he was in a low mood, act coquettously to make him happy, and could even predict which day he would get hurt and remind him to avoid it in time. Orion's replies changed from being casual at first to becoming more and more serious and attentive later. The girl's handwriting was somewhat similar to mine, but some of her habits were different. Until 3 days ago, Orion finally couldn't help asking her, "Can you tell me your name?" Orion and I were childhood sweethearts. We had been together for 7 years. And with the encouragement of our parents, we were going to get engaged in another month. Today was the day we had agreed to choose our engagement rings. The salesperson took out several styles for us to try on. I asked Orion for his opinion, and he glanced at them and said inferiorly, "As long as you like it." He was clearly distracted. Was it because the girl hadn't replied? While I was trying on the rings, Orion looked down at his watch on his wrist again, frowning slightly. It was almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The letters in the desk drawer were refreshed at this time every day. He was probably more eager to go back and check if there was a new letter than to accompany me to choose a ring. The air conditioner in the mall was a bit too warm. Orion casually rolled up the sleeves of his shirt, exposing the hideous scars on his forearm. Maybe those letters were really from the future. 3 months ago, I had a sudden urge to fry fish. But somehow, the fish was still struggling desperately. It was jumping around in the hot oil pan, splashing oil everywhere. In my panic, I accidentally knocked over the pan handle, and the boiling hot oil splashed over. Orion immediately protected me under his body, but his shoulders and arms were severely scalded. At that time, he looked astonished and seemed to be frozen in place. I thought he was in too much pain to move, and I felt both guilty and anxious. Now that I think about it, perhaps he realized that the girl's prediction in the letter had come true. Only one thing was different. The girl said both she and he would get hurt. But I wasn't hurt at all. I seemed to have caught the flu. My whole body ached and I had a high fever that wouldn't go down. Feeling like I couldn't hold on anymore, I struggled to call Orion in a daze. His voice was slightly deep. "What's wrong?" I suddenly wanted to play a joke on him. "Come back quickly. I'm pregnant." Once last month, he was too rough and something got torn. There was a possibility. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. But there was no joy as I had expected. "Okay. I'll come back after the meeting." I don't know how much time had passed. It was already completely dark. I struggled to get up to pour myself a glass of water, and then collapsed back on the sofa, unable to move. The door opened and Orion finally came back. But the first thing he did when he entered the door wasn't to come to see me. Instead, he walked into the study. Recently, he had been spending a lot of time in the study and communicating with me less and less. It was as if he was avoiding something. In the dim yellow light, I looked drowsily in the direction of the study. Even breathing felt bitter. I stood up and walked over slowly. Was it something so important that he couldn't even spare a glance at me? Orion was standing by the desk, holding a letter in his hand and examining it, his eyes focused. Perhaps because he hadn't received a reply. A look of sadness and loss flashed across his eyes in an instant. I had only seen this expression on him 3 years ago, when I mentioned breaking up with him. He must be very anxious. Since he asked the girl her name in the letter, she hadn't replied for a whole week. Every minute and every second of these 7 days was undoubtedly torture for Orion. The girl had attracted all his attention, making it impossible for him to concentrate on anything. Many sleepless nights. I saw him take out those letters one by one and read them over and over again. Even when talking to me, he would be distracted. He had completely fallen into this love that transcended time and space and into the future described by the girl. Orion suddenly looked up and finally noticed me looking at him. He put down the letter and walked towards me quickly. "You're awake?" So he had seen me. But to him, the girl's reply was more important. So he put me aside first. I didn't say anything. Orion hugged me, touched my forehead, and frowned. "Why is your fever so high? I'll take you to the hospital." I shook my head. "It's the flu. I've taken medicine. I just need to lie down for a while." "Aren't you pregnant?" "I was kidding you." He seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and tapped me on the head as a punishment. "The flu isn't an ordinary cold. It's safer to go to the hospital." He ignored my refusal and found a blanket to wrap me up. "Orion, have you already decided that the girl isn't me?" Orion got drunk. I took him from his friend. He was very drunk and his body was heavy. I struggled to help him step by step into the living room. Before his friend left, he said that Orion seemed to have something on his mind and asked me to comfort him more. I smiled. Maybe I could say something about other things. But I couldn't help him with this. The answer he wanted was something I couldn't give. After helping Orion sit down on the sofa, just as I was about to take a breath, he suddenly leaned over and pressed me down. He looked down at me. His eyes filled with suppressed pain and confusion. He mumbled drunkenly, "Serafina. It must be you. Right. If it's not you, then who could it be?" Did he hope it was me? If it wasn't me, what would he do? The girl had only been out of contact for 2 weeks. And it made him so sad. Does it mean that the woman from the far-off future is already more important to him than me? Who is by his side? A week later, I still had a cough. When I went to the hospital for a review, I unexpectedly saw Orion helping a young girl walk out of the hospital entrance. But an hour ago, he clearly told me that he was meeting a client. The girl had a buzz on her forehead. Her small face was plain but delicate. Her long black hair reached her waist. She was slender and looked frail, leaning in Orion's arms. She was like a bird that had found a shelter in the strong wind. Perhaps sensing my gaze, Orion looked up and happened to meet my eyes. His pupils shrank slightly, and he pushed the girl in his arms away. "Serafina?" I looked at him for a while and then walked over. Orion glanced at the slightly nervous girl beside him. "This is a new salesperson in the company. She fainted from hypoglycemia when she went out with me to talk about business. Her forehead was injured, so I brought her here to get it bandaged." New salesperson. Accompanying him to do business? The client this time is from Portugal. And she's the only one in the company who can speak Portuguese. Orion noticed my doubt and explained. "So that was the case?" I asked with concern. "Are you okay?" The girl smiled shyly. "It's just a minor injury. It's nothing serious." Only then did I notice that she had buck teeth when she smiled, adding a bit more cuteness to her innocence. Orion asked, "What's wrong with you? Are you not feeling well?" I shook my head. "I still have a cough. I came to the hospital to get an X-ray." Before he could ask, I continued. "It's nothing serious. I'll be fine after taking some more medicine for a few days. Orion's words were stopped. His gaze lingered on my face for a moment. I'll take you back. Before that, he had to send this girl home first. I was a bit thirsty. I remembered there were a few bottles of soda in the car refrigerator. Out of politeness, I asked the girl, if you have hypoglycemia, do you want to drink some sweet water? There's Arctic Ocean in the fridge. Orion spoke before her. She can't drink anything with a lychee flavor. I suddenly remembered what was written in the letter. Orion, I hate looking at the sea. And I also hate milk tea. Especially milk tea with a lychee flavor. Promise me. Never. Never buy it for me. But my favorite fruit is lychee. After the girl left, we didn't talk during the whole journey. I happened to look up and noticed that the small pendant in the car had been replaced with a rabbit-shaped amulet. I was a bit surprised. What happened to the previous love knot? Orion paused for 2 seconds. Then looked away and replied. I took it down when I saw it was a bit old. You're a rabbit in the Chinese zodiac, right? This one is also quite cute. A dull feeling welled up in my chest. I touched the amulet but didn't say anything. I gave the love knot to him before the college entrance examination when I was 18. At that time, I was young and innocent, not knowing how to express my feelings. I was afraid that after the college entrance examination, we would go our separate ways and our relationship would fade. It took me 3 days to clumsily weave this rather complicated heart-shaped love knot. And it took me another 3 months to muster up the courage to give it to him, using the excuse of wishing him a bright future and smooth sailing. However, this was the boldest confession I could make at that time. Fortunately, Orion didn't reject me. In the 5th year of our relationship, after graduating from university, he bought his first car and then hung this up. Just by looking at this rough craftsmanship, one can tell it was given by a girlfriend. He teased me with a smile. This way, no one will covet your passenger seat. 2 years passed in a blink of an eye. Even though he had changed to a better and more expensive car, this love knot was still there. When exactly was it? He took it down. Oh, I remembered. The girl in the letter once said that she went to a temple to get a talisman for safety and hung it on his car. That year happened to be the year of the rabbit. But Orion, who gave you this one? In the late hours of the early morning, Orion glanced at me, who was sleeping soundly beside him, put on his clothes, got up, and walked to the balcony. Under the star-filled sky, his figure seemed particularly lonely. I opened my eyes and heard a soft female voice on the phone with sleepiness and confusion. President Orion? Why are you calling so late? He was silent for a moment and then said in a low voice. I dreamed of you. I told Orion that I planned to go out alone to relax. After this trip, I should know how to handle the relationship between him and me. Orion didn't ask much. He sensed the strangeness in my emotions, looked at me in silence for a long time, and finally just told me to take good care of myself and contact him in time if there was any situation. As soon as I dragged my suitcase out the door, I received a message from my mom. Cedric was back. Only he could wear a simple shirt and windbreaker with such an otherworldly air. Standing in the living room, my thoughts wandered. How many years had it been since we last met? Cedric was 1 year older than Orion and me. The 3 of us could be said to have grown up together. Orion, such an arrogant person, listened to him very much. He was like a little bodhisattva since he was a child, fair-skinned, with a proper and handsome appearance, so delicate that his gender was almost blurred. My mom said that he entered a Taoist temple at the age of 19. Counting it, it had been 6 years since we last saw each other. Cedric's indifferent gaze fell on me, making me shiver. Different from us ordinary people in the mortal world. Just looking at him made me feel that my 6 sense organs were purified, and I didn't dare to have any distracting thoughts. He touched my head. You've grown taller. My mom covered her mouth and laughed beside us. Serafina has been afraid of you since she was a child. Look. After all these years, as soon as you show up, she's like a mouse seeing a cat. I was sweating profusely. It really wasn't my fault that I was afraid of him. At the age of 18, while the adults were away from home, the young couple secretly tried some things. At first, It was just touching lips and kissing necks. But then Orion's kisses became more and more urgent. I didn't know how to respond and lay stiffly on the sofa, letting him do what he wanted. Just then, right out of well sorry, Cedric suddenly said. Serafina. What are you doing? As soon as I heard his voice, I was so scared that my soul almost flew away. I rolled off the sofa. My face flushed. Throughout the whole summer vacation, Orion and I behaved ourselves under his surveillance. We didn't even dare to hold hands. When he left home that year, I secretly felt happy. Cedric gave me a meaningful look and said to my mom, Auntie, I'll take Serafino out for a walk. My mom readily agreed. Halfway through the walk in the park, I couldn't help asking him, Brother Cedric, why did you come back all of a sudden? He stopped. The postcard you sent me this year had a poem passers-by, she added. He looked at me as if he could see through my soul. Serafina, you've encountered something unhappy, haven't you? I was stunned for a moment. And my eyes suddenly turned red. Only he would travel thousands of miles back just because I quoted a few more lines of poetry. I told him the content of the letter and what had happened recently. I was a bit worried that he might think it was too absurd. But I also felt that he should believe me. It seems that he just fell in love with a woman he had only corresponded with and never met in person. Cedric was silent for a while and then said, If he loves you, then there can't be a future he dreams of without you. Even if you're not his wife. I had a moment of realization. Yes. If he loved me, how could there be a future without me? The weather in October was getting chilly. I wrapped my shawl tighter around me and asked softly, When will you leave? I would feel more at ease if he was around. I came back this time for you. Cedric picked up the fallen leaf on my head and put it in his palm. When my fate with you comes to an end, I'll go back. Orion finally received her reply. She said her name was Fable. In the letter, she left the time and place of their first lovemaking, and her tone was gentle with a touch of nostalgia. I'm very grateful to you for blocking that pot of hot tea for me at the company's celebration banquet. It made your injury even worse. And I felt guilty for a long time. Although you might not have cared much. I had already started to like you at that time. Later, in that coffee shop, I was scolded because of a work mistake. I was crying while making corrections. And it was you who sat down and gave me a tissue. It was at that time that we talked a lot and developed a crush on each other. That's right. After Orion was scalded by hot oil, he went to the hospital for simple treatment and then returned to the company. At that time, they had just won a big order that could support the company for 3 years. And they held a celebration banquet in high spirits. He couldn't afford to miss it. After coming back, the burn on his arm got worse. He said that a colleague in the company accidentally slipped while pouring tea, and a whole pot of hot tea almost splashed on him. He reached out to help, and both of them got scalded. I held the letter paper and stood there speechless for a long time. So it really wasn't me. I've known Orion since I was 7 years old. He was precocious since childhood. He thought I was stupid and didn't allow me to pester him. But he also wouldn't let others bully me. From the ignorant days to the period of budding love as a young girl, his presence permeated my entire youth. I never thought that one day he would become someone else's husband. So this time, will you still go? Even though you already know that after this appointment, we will completely go our separate ways. Orion saw the letter but didn't open it. He drove with me for a long time to that hillside restaurant we hadn't been to for a long time. The scenery in the mountains was beautiful, and the best sunset glow could be seen on the terrace. Orion put his coat on my shoulders and asked in a low voice, Serafina, have you ever thought about what we'll be like in the future? The sunset glow was like beautiful brocade, magnificent like fire. I looked at the sky and said calmly, probably similar to now. There will be someone to comfort me when I'm down. And someone to add close when I'm cold. Maybe we'll have a lovely child. She'll be very naughty. And we'll also have quarrels. Pointing at her and saying things like, if it weren't for you, daughter. When the child grows up, we can go to many places. I want to see the snow in Hokkaido, walk on the beach in Bali, and feel the wind on the prairie. I think that as long as you're with me, everywhere will be interesting. We still have a very long time to be together. I'll watch your face gradually get wrinkles. And you'll watch me slowly grow white hair. And our child will also be growing up. When we're very old, I'll push you in a wheelchair. Or you'll push me. Maybe we can't go far. But any place with each other is home. The wind tonight was so strong that it made the corners of my eyes feel a bit sore. And my throat was getting drier and drier. Orion didn't speak for a long time. I raised my head. Just as I was about to look at him, he hugged me into his arms. I heard his heart beating so violently. And I also felt the wetness on my shoulder. He hugged me tighter and tighter. So tight that my body started to hurt a little. I heard the hoarseness in his throat. Everything you said will come true. My birthday arrived. Today was also the day Orion had promised to propose to me. In the morning, I clutched the quilt tightly and asked Orion nervously, "Will you come?" Coincidentally, the time written in the girl's letter was also today. Perhaps the anticipation in my eyes was too obvious. Orion fastened the last button, lowered his head, and kissed my lips, smiling. "Of course I will." Although everything seemed natural, I just wanted to hear him seriously ask me if I was willing to marry him and spend my life with him. At that time, Orion probably still thought the woman in the letter was me. He gently promised as he held me on his lap. The weather was getting colder. I waited for him at the hillside restaurant. The staff had decorated the venue in advance, preparing a lot of flowers and balloons. I touched them and liked them very much. It's just a pity it will be wasted. Judging by the weather, it's likely to rain. Please ask your husband to come quickly. The waiter reminded. I said, "Okay." I called Orion. But no one answered. Even until the third call. There was still no answer. I waited in the cold wind for a long time. Unconsciously, having fulfilled my sigh. The sky gradually darkened. And the petals laid on the ground were blown away by the wind. A staff asked me several times. And finally, I told them to leave. The wind gradually became shrill. And the haze covered the sky. It was going to rain. I got up and put the cake and flowers on the table into the car one by one. Orion didn't come. He wasn't coming. Cedric walked towards me slowly, holding an umbrella. I smiled. "Cedric, do you think fate is predetermined?" He didn't answer. Just hugged me into his arms. Actually, I already knew he wouldn't come. But after all those years of feelings, he was so good to me without reservation for so many years. How could it change so suddenly? It was very late when Orion finally got home. He saw the broken cake on the table. "The staff said you waited all day." I didn't answer. He squatted in front of me, his eyes showing fatigue and guilt. "I'm sorry." Apart from this sentence, he had no other explanation. Perhaps the future is unchangeable. And people ultimately can't resist the wheel of fate. When he came back, there was clearly joy between his brows. It seemed that he had a good conversation with her. He had already confirmed that the girl was her. "Orion, let's break up," I said. "Find a time to talk to our parents." Fortunately, having fulfilled the invitations haven't been sent out yet. I'll move out in the next few days. He looked at me for a long time and was also silent for a long time. "Okay." His expression was a bit regretful. But he seemed relatively relieved. "This house was originally bought for you. You don't need to move. Also, the several shops beside the city hall and the golf course in the western suburbs are all in your name." I laughed. What a generous breakup fee. President Orion. A look similar to sadness flashed in his eyes. And then he quickly regained his calm. "I'm sorry for you." A week later, several childhood friends held a welcome-back dinner for Cedric. Everyone knew he liked peace and quiet, so they chose that half-mountain restaurant far from the city center. They reserved the entire tavern and the terrace. And there were no other outsiders. However, Orion brought Fable. The others didn't know the situation and just thought he had brought an ordinary friend. I looked at her and wasn't surprised. As expected, she was the girl I met at the hospital that day. "Brother Cedric hasn't been back for years. We thought you'd become an immortal." "Yeah. I even made an appointment with Orion to go to Jingshan Mount and to pay respects to you. Brother Cedric. You probably don't know that Serafina and Orion are getting married soon." Hudson patted my shoulder and glanced at Orion. They're finally going to tie the knot. We're all so envious. Fable's face turned slightly pale. Someone handed her a glass of wine. This is your boss's wife. Why not offer her a toast? Fable took the wine. A hint of bitterness flashed in her eyes. And slowly raised the glass towards me. Boss's wife. Before she could say anything, Orion had already snatched the glass, lowered his eyes, and said indifferently, Serafina and I have broken up. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent. After a while, someone asked hesitantly, why? How should I say it? I couldn't very well tell them that the girl in front of him was his future wife. I was thinking about what to say and unconsciously had drunk my third glass. Cedric took my glass and pushed his own over. Drink this. Fruit wine is less likely to get you drunk. In the silence, everyone tactfully stopped discussing this topic. Fable lowered her head, finally unable to bear the oppressive atmosphere, and went to the terrace alone. Orion followed her out. When I went out to get some air, I happened to see him gently coaxing her in the moonlight. Fable seemed to be amused and glared at him with tears in her eyes. The tenderness in his eyes as he looked at her made me feel sad. Perhaps that girl still didn't know. He had already regarded her as his wife. A group of people set up a grill and held a barbecue party on the terrace. Hudson plopped down next to Fable, put his arm around her shoulder boldly, and handed her a grilled skewer. Everyone here is easygoing. Don't be restrained. Among this group, apart from Orion and Cedric, he was quite good-looking and always had a good rapport with the opposite sex. He especially liked girls like Fable, who were gentle and obedient. Fable was a bit at a loss but still accepted his kindness. Thank you. A hint of displeasure flashed in Orion's eyes. He walked over and slapped Hudson's hand away, warning in a light tone. Keep your hands to yourself and sit back. After Hudson left with an embarrassed look, Orion naturally sat in the place where he had just been. He'd already started to feel possessive towards her. The familiar pain spread in my chest. I lowered my head, and my eyes were unconsciously getting swollen. At this moment, I finally understood. I was facing an invincible rival. With just a few words, that girl had broken down the relationship I thought was unshakable. I was ultimately just a foil in their fated love. My forehead was gently tapped with a finger. I looked up and saw Cedric, surrounded by the night. His features were deep and three-dimensional. His long hair was tied back, yet he didn't look feminine at all. He said, "Get up. I'll take you to feed the squirrels." There were many tall fir trees around the terrace. The shop owner had built a wooden house for squirrels on the fir tree closest to the terrace for guests to feed and have fun. I picked up some hazelnuts and placed them in my palm. Two small squirrels with big tails scurried down from the tree and scrambled to eat the hazelnuts from my hand. My palm felt itchy, and a smile couldn't help but appear on my lips. You've liked these animals since you were a child. Cedric stroked the squirrels' heads. And they didn't run away, allowing him to caress them. Do you want to keep one in the future? Yeah. I didn't dare to move, afraid of scaring them away. I want to keep a big dog in the future. Preferably a golden retriever. And also keep a cat to sleep with me. Cedric nodded. Okay. I was taken aback and turned to look at him. He looked at me, his eyes deep and gentle. During the barbecue break, Hudson suggested we play our traditional game, Truth or Dare. Cedric usually disdained participating in such games, but this time he didn't refuse. The wine bottle spun on the table a few times, and the mouth of the bottle pointed at Fable. Hudson randomly picked up a card and started asking, "What's the craziest thing you've done so far?" Fable propped her chin up. Probably when I was 19. I went drag racing with some friends on a winding road. It was really exciting and crazy at that time. Thinking about it now, I'm still a bit scared. Don't follow my example. Everyone. I remembered what she wrote in the letter. Orion. What should I do? I still don't dare to drive. I probably won't be able to get a driver's license in my life. But it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be as timid as me. Hudson was quite surprised. I can't tell that you look so delicate. But you're more daring than some of us guys here. But in the letter, she was afraid of driving and didn't have a driver's license. Right? Fable also seemed to remember something and looked at Orion a bit awkwardly. Orion lowered his head, took a sip of wine, and said lightly, "She's just boasting. Can't you tell?" Hudson slapped his forehead. "Damn. I actually believed it." Fable picked up her glass and said with a smile, "I choose to drink." There was still some nervousness left on her face. I withdrew my gaze. Orion had already made up his mind about her. No matter what she did, he would find excuses for her in his heart. The wine bottle spun again and finally stopped in front of Cedric. Hudson got excited this time. He didn't even pick up a card, sat up straight, and stared at him. "For so many years, I've always been curious. Has our Cedric ever fallen in love?" I coughed, a surge of protectiveness rising. I instinctively wanted to cover up this topic for the aloof Cedric. As everyone knows, Taoists don't get involved in worldly affairs. Cedric lowered his eyes and said calmly, "Yes." I was stunned. Hudson's eyes widened, and his mouth opened wide too. The others' reactions were no better. The drink in Hudson's hand spilled all over his hand. He didn't care. Just wiped it casually. "Who is it? Can you tell us? Could it be a fairy in the mountains? Don't tell me it's a fox spirit. Are there any Taoist nuns in your temple?" To catch our Cedric's sigh. "She must be a celestial beauty." "Hey! Can you guys stop talking? Let him speak. I'm waiting to hear." Under everyone's gaze, Cedric raised his eyes. And his gaze landed on me. Everything was self-evident. "Fuck." Hudson was so excited that he stomped his foot. And the stool tipped over. He scrambled up from the ground in a hurry and pointed at me in disbelief, asking, "You like Serafina?" Cedric looked at me and nodded. "President Orion." Fable touched Orion's hand, motioning for him to come to his senses. But he just kept looking at me, as if waiting for my answer. I covered my ears and buried my face in my knees. Oh my God. Until the end of the party, I was still in a daze. The new apartment I moved into was in the same direction as Hudson's house. He opened the car door. And just as I was about to get in, my wrist was grabbed. Cedric said, "I'll take you." Hudson was startled, closed the car door, and locked it neatly. "You go and take the Taoist scar. There's no room in my car." Me? Fable had already gotten into the passenger seat of Orion's car, but he stopped by the car and looked at me. His gaze was obscure, like an ancient well with hidden waves under the moonlight, making it hard for me to figure out. Okay. Maybe the heating in the car was too high. My face and neck were hot. So I had to open the window to let in some cold air. Hot? No, it's because of the wine. Cedric handed me a bottle of Arctic Ocean with a lychee flavor. "I saw you like this last time." I took it trembling lie. "Yeah. Thank you." He even noticed this. "I've known you for no shorter a time than Orion." He looked ahead, his voice lingering in the night. "And I've liked you for no shorter a time than him. I've known for a long time that if I were to get married in this life, it would only be to you. Serafina, have you ever thought? If his future wife is someone else, then who will your future husband be?" Back at the apartment, I finally made up my mind to speak. "But Cedric." "Why me?" I was a bit uneasy and embarrassed. There doesn't seem to be anything special about me. In the slightly small room, he slowly approached me. "I like you precisely because I can see your goodness. The things you think are ordinary are special in my eyes. Different from everyone else." The day my grandmother passed away, I didn't cry. The adults said I was ungrateful. Only you stood up and loudly defended me, asking the others if it wasn't me who took care of grandmother before her death. You were only 8 years old then. One year, we encountered a group of stray dogs. I told you to go first, but you hugged my waist and said not to look the dogs in the eyes, so they wouldn't bite us. You were only 12 years old that year, when everyone was trying to stop me from becoming a Taoist priest. Only you said that everyone has their own aspirations and should follow their own destiny. You were 18 years old that year." I stared at him blankly. Cedric held my hand, interlacing our fingers. "You and I are destined. Serafina." My heart skipped a beat. And then a blush spread across my cheeks. I had never seen him like this or heard him say such things. I lowered my head to calm down for a while. Then said hesitantly, "Can we wait a little longer? I need some time to get over it completely. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair to you." He tucked my hair behind my ear. "Okay, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. I'll wait for you." A year later, I left this city and chose to travel. I took on some design drafts and translation jobs online. In my spare time, I wrote articles and could earn a decent income. Cedric didn't return to the Taoist temple. He accompanied me to many cities, from bustling marketplaces to secluded mountains and waters. In fact, I just went to take pictures. But walking with him gave me a sense of being a carefree hermit. Time is a good medicine. Orion has faded out of my life. When I think of him now, I only feel relieved. I finally managed to extricate myself from that relationship with a bitter end. "Cedric. After dinner," I said hesitantly. "What? Don't want to do the dishes?" He didn't look up. "No." I stammered a bit. The thing you said before about us being destined. Does it still count?" He suddenly looked up, his clear black henweight eyes looking fixedly at me. "Of course." "Well, then shall we be together?" "Okay." He stood up, and I was so startled that I also stood up. "Huh? What's wrong?" He walked towards me, held my waist, and lowered his head to kiss me. His lips were bright red and even softer than they looked. Do something I've wanted to do for a long time. A tingling sensation spread in my waist, and my hands and feet went weak. "Cedric. Cedric. Every time I looked at you before, I wanted to do this. But at that time, Orion was by your side. Since he couldn't give you the future you wanted, it's good that we let each other go and let each other go. Sarafina, you may not know this, but I love you." It took my parents a long time to gradually accept the fact that Orion and I had separated. After all, over the years, they had already regarded him as a son and had long recognized him. But when they learned that Cedric was going to be their son-in-law, they couldn't stop smiling. And the joy in their eyes overflowed. They muttered about how lucky I was, and then pulled him to the sofa, holding his hand to chat. "I've had my eye on you since you were a kid. You're clearly a determined and a bright child. I'm very relieved to hand Serafina over to you. Do you have any thoughts of getting married? You two are childhood sweethearts. It's better to make plans early." I stood aside, feeling extremely awkward. "Dad." Cedric glanced at me and smiled. "If Serafina is willing, I'm ready at any time." "That's great. That's great. By the way, are there any taboos about this in your Taoist temple?" "I'm a secular Taoist. I can live among the people, get married, and have children." "That's good. That's good." The day I went to Cedric's house, his mother came out from the manor from afar to greet me. She held my hands tightly, almost in tears, and said, "Thanks to you, Sarafina. Otherwise, I'm afraid my son would die alone in the Taoist temple." Auntie had given up hope on him. "I never thought he'd bring a wife back. And it's you, whom I've watched grow up since childhood. Auntie is really happy." I was at a loss when Cedric looked at me and smiled faintly. On the day I married Cedric, Orion also came. He was dressed formally and it was obvious that he had groomed himself carefully. Yet he still looked a bit haggard. His gaze fell on me, and a glimmer of light flickered in his eyes. After a while, a smile slowly appeared on his lips. "You look beautiful in your wedding dress." Cedric walked to my side and adjusted my veil. I took his arm and said politely, "Thank you." His expression was dazed for a moment, as if he was looking at something through me. Finally, "Hadn't fulfilled way," he said sincerely. "Serafina, I wish you a lifetime of joy, health, and that all your wishes come true." I smiled. "The same to you." In the almost blinding sunlight, he took a step back. "Sorry. I didn't do what I promised." At the age of 18, a boy firmly held my hand and promised my parents that he would be with me forever. And now, there is no longer a place for each other in our futures. A year later, Orion transferred the company's equity to his parents and went abroad. His girlfriend, Fable, went with him. It was said that before he left, He told his parents that he would probably live abroad for a long time and it would be difficult for him to come back. After that, there was no news of him. A few years later, Cedric and I had a daughter. When she smiled, there were sweet dimples on her cheeks. A thought flashed through my mind that she should be named Derar. Ir from Lunar, a Chinese phrase meaning smile. 20 years passed in a blink of an eye. During a small gathering with friends before the new year, someone mentioned Orion by accident. It had been so long since I heard this name that I was dazed for a moment. Until Hudson said hesitantly, "I heard not long ago that Orion passed away 18 years ago." My heart suddenly tightened. How could that be? Wasn't he supposed to go abroad to settle down with Fable? Unexpectedly, Fable contacted me and invited me to a small tavern to catch up. "You seem to be doing well," she said with a deep gaze at me for a while. Smiling. "What about Orion? Why did he die? Weren't you supposed to be very happy?" I tried my best to suppress the tremor in my throat. Be like what was described in the letter. Loving each other as husband and wife. Having a cute daughter. And living a happy life. She continued for me, her tone calm. "Unfortunately, heading to Feldley. I was just an actress he hired with money." A certain corner of my chest suddenly felt empty. And my mind went blank. After going abroad under the identity of his fee and key, we parted ways as soon as we got off the plane. I took the money and traveled around the UK. And then I returned to Portugal. My mother married a local wealthy businessman. And life is pretty good, she said slowly. I wasn't short of money originally. But I just thought the game he set up was interesting. Such an absurd thing. Yet he believed it deeply. I once suspected there was something wrong with his mind. Why did he do this? After a long time, I heard my own voice. Yeah. Letters from a future wife. And breaking up with his girlfriend because of such a ridiculous thing. You also think it's crazy, right? Fable sneered. And her expression turned indifferent. But he said he would die in a car accident 2 years later. And it came true. Do you know? After you got married, he had a high fever for a week. And in his illness, he still murmured your name. He saw how sad you were during that time. He knew you best and knew exactly how to hurt you. He probably didn't have an easy time either. He forced himself to become the person you hated the most. Many times when he looked at you, I felt he was about to break down. Oh. When he showed me those letters, I secretly scanned and printed a copy. Fable gulped down a glass of wine, put the folder on the table, and got up to leave. I've kept his secret for 20 years. If I accidentally blurt it out when I'm drunk someday, I don't think he can blame me. I opened those letters I had never seen before. So this was the whole truth of the matter. Parallel time-space Orion's perspective extra. This was the first year he became a vegetable. Serafina stayed by his bedside day and night. He could hear her voice. And whenever his eyes moved slightly, she would be overjoyed. "I'm sorry. It's my fault that you became like this. Don't blame yourself anymore. It was just an accident. I shouldn't have been so capricious. If I hadn't said I wanted to go on a beach vacation, you wouldn't have rushed over in such a hurry. And you wouldn't have taken a detour to my favorite milk tea shop to buy my usual milk tea to please me. And then crashed into that overturned truck. Silly girl. I deliberately induced you to go there. I had prepared a surprise there. Originally, having so filled my say, I wanted to propose to you. Not having proposed to you seriously has always been my regret. I never thought that that argument would make her feel guilty for most of her life. If it wasn't to protect me, you might not have been so seriously injured. Even without you, that chain reaction car accident was inevitable. What's more, I'm happy that you're safe. Orion, please wake up. We're supposed to get married. I'm sorry. I may not be able to accompany you anymore." This was the second year he became a vegetable. Uncle and aunt. Don't worry. I will never give up on him. After his parents left, Serafina sat by his bedside. Her tone full of guilt. "Your parents must be very sad. You're still so young. Silly girl. They divorced when I was 3 years old and each remarried. After leaving me in my grandmother's care, they didn't come to see me for years. How could they be sad? This time they came just to inquire about the property. Fortunately, hadn't fulfilled me. There's you. adding a touch of warmth and joy to my childhood memories. This was the 3rd year he became a vegetable. She could skillfully wash, massage, and move his joints for him. I know you're a clean freak, so I've taken good care of you. You shouldn't be angry with me when you wake up. She started working again and became a bit busy. But she would still take some time every day to read books and newspapers to him. Occasionally, she would talk about the past, her tone vivid and cheerful, as if he was just taking a nap with his eyes closed. You were always a bit unhappy during the spring festival when we were kids. Seeing you look so lonely, I somehow felt sad too. So even though you seemed impatient, I kept pestering you and even insisted on sleeping with you at night. Later, I gradually understood that you were sad because you saw other kids having their parents around while yours were not. So I ran to ask my parents if you could move and become part of our family. So you would be one of us. Your face turned completely red at that time. My parents still make fun of this incident until now. It doesn't matter. Oh Ryan. You've long been part of our family. So, you have to wake up soon. My parents miss you a lot. Oh Ryan. Are you crying? This was the 4th year he became a vegetable. The people around had gradually come out of their grief. Friends who came to visit occasionally would rationally persuade her to give up. After all, the recovery rate of vegetative patients is only 10–15. She didn't say anything and just saw them off with a smile. Oh Ryan. They all say you won't wake up. Yeah. But I know you can hear me. Right? You just can't respond. Yeah. This world is too lonely. So that's why I have to accompany you. Silly girl. This was the 5th year he became a vegetable. You know what? Cedric came back to look for me. He still looks so otherworldly. As if he's very powerful. Is that so? I asked him when you would wake up, but he couldn't answer either. Nonsense. He's not a god. He's been a bit strange since he came back this time. He actually said he likes me. Actually, I had already guessed it. But because of my selfishness, I didn't point it out. He also said he wants to marry me. Cedric is a very good person. If it's him, I'll feel much more at ease. But Orion, I'm already your wife. Silly girl. This was the 6th year he became a vegetable. Serafina shook the snow off her body and sat shivering by his bedside, blowing on her red frozen hands. The snow is so heavy this year. Everything is white everywhere. It's so cold. What about you? Do you feel cold? Silly girl. I don't feel cold. I have no sensation. The little girl next door's dog got lost. When it was found, it had already frozen to death. The adults are hiding it from her for fear that she'll be sad. It's so pitiful. She doesn't know yet that her puppy will never come back. Yeah. Serafina. So when will you believe that I won't wake up again? This was the 7th year he became a vegetable. Serafina got sick and didn't come to see him for a few days. When she appeared again, she had lost a lot of weight and looked a bit haggard. Oh Ryan. You know what? I dreamed last night that you woke up. You came to the bedside, kissed my face, and then went to the kitchen to make me breakfast. I opened my eyes and looked at your back in disbelief. I walked up to you in a daze and confirmed several times before I dared to believe that you were really awake. At that moment, I was really on the verge of tears. I stupidly asked if you were really okay. You gently responded, hugged me tenderly, and said in my ear, Serafina, you've been through so much alone all these years. There was a hint of a choke in her voice, but she quickly suppressed it. After that, I woke up. I lay in bed for a long time. I thought this dream was really beautiful. But such a dream. It's enough to have it just once. Because waking up is really sad. I've never wished as much as I do now that I could have been completely buried in that car accident. This is the 8th year since he became a vegetative state. Orion. They say there's a once-in-a-century meteor shower tonight. She still smiled. As if time had never left a mark on her. If you could make a wish, what would your wish be? Fool. My wish now is that you can forget about me. Just like everyone else. After learning that the hope was slim, rationally give up on me. Your youth and life shouldn't be stagnated because of me, and even less should they be a mess because of me. This is the 9th year since he became a vegetative state. Orion. I found the letters you hid. The letters she mentioned were written by him before the car accident. When they were young, they had an agreement to write a letter to their future selves every 10 years. I dug out the time capsule you buried when you were 14. On the note, you wrote that parents and school didn't allow puppy love at that time, and you were a bit worried whether my wife 10 years later would be you. I wrote the answer below, you fool. We're getting married soon. So, my wife, what will we be like 10 years later? Probably still similar to now. 3 meals a day. 4 seasons a year. Life is plain but warm. My work probably won't be as busy as it is now. And I can have a lot of time to accompany you. Do what you want to do. Go where you want to go. And see the scenery you want to see. Maybe we'll have a child. Preferably a daughter. And she looks more like you. Then I won't be so angry when she's naughty. Serafina. I'm looking forward to our next 10-year journey. But 10 years later. They were firmly separated by a hospital bed. She was clearly smiling. But her voice sounded so sad. I wrote a lot of replies. Can I read them to you? Hello. Orion 10 years ago. I have good news for you. We're still happily together 10 years from now. Right now. You're rubbing my lower abdomen because I'm on my period. The weather is so nice today. The afternoon sun shines through the glass onto your face. Warm and making people feel good. While rubbing, I couldn't help but hug you and kiss you. You guessed it right. I'm your wife now. July 14. 23rd Typhor. By the way. On September 25, 2023. I accidentally slipped while making tea with a thermos. Although you were quick-eyed and caught me, the kettle had already been knocked over. My arms and shoulders were severely scalded. And you also got your hands burned. This time. You have to remember to stop me. Orion. I hate looking at the sea. And I also hate milk tea. Especially milk tea with a lychee flavor. Promise me. Never. Never buy it for me. I know that you often feel anxious and confused now. And you often question your choices. But anyway. We got through it together in the future. Let me tell you secretly that our daughter looks a lot like you. She has a sweet dimple on her cheek when she smiles. Her name is Erar. Dear from Waner Yizhao smile sweetly. In each reply, she painted a completely different ending. At least in this way. In another parallel universe. We're still happy. This is the 10th year since he became a vegetative state. Serafina hadn't come to visit him for a long time. Sometimes he thought that maybe she had finally seen sense and decided to let go of him and live the life she wanted. More than feeling lost, he felt a sense of relief. She finally no longer lived in the past and finally moved towards her future. At least in the next 10 years. His Serafina wouldn't be weather-beaten anymore. Serafina's mother came. Her expression was grief-stricken. Her rough hand gently stroked his face. And her voice trembled a little. Orion. I know you've been waiting. But Serafina won't come anymore. She fainted on her way to the hospital due to over-fatigue and died of a heart attack. Orion. What's wrong with you? Doctor. Doctor. That year. He woke up. Everyone said it was a miracle. But she could no longer see it. 3 years after Serafina's death. His parents left with a sigh. The moment the door closed. The house became dark and silent again. This time. It was them who tried to persuade him to let go of Serafina. So this was how she felt at that time? He wasn't unaware of the truth, that the dead have passed away and the living should move on. But when everyone was moving forward, how could he bear to leave her behind? Death is not the end. Forgetting is. He wheeled his wheelchair into the study. The afternoon sun, carrying dust, spilled through the gaps in the curtains onto the letters in the desk drawer. He read them one by one. Even in these 3 years. These letters had been read and reread countless times by him. Serafina injured her right hand in the car accident. Which affected her writing. Some of the handwriting was blurred. As if it had been smudged by water. He had thought countless times what kind of mood she was in when writing these letters. Every time he thought of this. His heart would ache densely. Deep sorrow. Like a flood. Accumulated in his chest. Dragging him down constantly. Maybe it was just like this. Maybe it was the same as what he was feeling now. When he saw the last letter. A passage of text gradually emerged on the back of the letter paper. What kind of new prank is this? The handwriting was so familiar that his hands trembled slightly. Perhaps by the grace of fate, these letters really returned to the hands of Orion 10 years ago. He watched himself 10 years ago reply to the letters again and again. From being initially incredulous to gradually starting to believe. In the reply on September 26, 2023, Orion said, "As you said, I made tea for you in advance. But as if it were fate, later you still spilled the hot oil in the pot. Fortunately, hadn't fulfilledly. I showed up in time. And you didn't get hurt. Maybe it's the punishment for me trying to change the future forcefully. This time, I was even more severely injured, as if all your injuries had been transferred to me." His heart suddenly skipped a beat, and a certain thought flashed through his mind, making all the muscles in his body tense up. That is to say, even if the future is predicted in advance, the end of being scalded still can't be prevented. It's just that this time, the injury was transferred from Serafina to himself. This might be the price of forcefully changing the future. If the injury can be transferred, then death can be too. His ending might not be changeable, but Serafina's can be. So, he and himself 10 years ago planned a time-spanning hoax. He noticed that Serafina had discovered the existence of the letters. He deliberately gave her the chance to read them all, and then through various hints, made her think that the woman in the letters wasn't her. He had long known that Cedric would come back for her and had known his feelings for her from the start. If there was anyone in the world who could make Serafina forget the harm he brought and anyone who could make Serafina entrust herself wholeheartedly without any guard, it was only Cedric. Only Cedric. And he could leave with peace of mind. This was the most thorough deception in the world, directly cutting off all possibilities between them. Nothing could make one give up more completely and directly knowing the end of the story. But this hoax ultimately hurt both others and himself. Orion 10 years ago finally personally rue, and the future he had been longing for the most. Serafina's perspective ending the new year is coming soon. I got home, and Error quickly came up to me, took my arm, and said happily, "Mom, come quickly. Dad made your favorite stir-fried shrimp." In the kitchen, Cedric, wearing an apron, was making soup. The years didn't seem to have much impact on him. He turned sideways to me, still as elegant and refined as ever, but with a bit more of the worldly atmosphere. Noticing my arrival, he filled a bowl of soup, turned to look at me, and said, "Go and wait at the table. Dinner will be ready soon." When his eyes met my face, he frowned slightly. "Have you been crying?" I shook my head and smiled. "Cedric, do you believe in parallel universes? In this parallel universe, Orion, because he forcefully changed the future, who could have woken up in the 10th year of being a vegetative state, now completely died in that car accident, but my ending was changed. In this parallel universe, I didn't die suddenly from a cerebral hemorrhage due to over-fatigue. Nor did I go through those 10 years of unspeakable depression and pain." He stared at me for a moment and said softly, "Maybe." Error buried her head in my neck. "Mom, did you watch some movie about time and space? Your eyes are all red from crying." "Yeah, that's right." She pulled me towards the living room. "Don't be sad. Watch a variety show to relax. Let me tell you, this variety show is super funny." At night, gorgeous fireworks bloomed in the sky, one after another continuously. Error exclaimed in excitement, hurriedly pulling me and her father to the balcony and kept pressing the shutter of the camera towards the night sky. Amid the sounds of firecrackers, Cedric put his arm around my shoulder, and a gentle kiss landed on my hair. "Serafina, Happy New Year." I looked up and gazed at the starlit night sky against the evening breeze. "Orion, look, fireworks rise towards the stars. And all wishes come true." The end.